What's up, everyone? It's Giorgio, your friendly neighborhood YouTuber, and I am back with Beyond Wrestling episode 4, I believe. I know the last time I did one of these was I was reviewing the Crown Jewel pay-per-view, which in my opinion is I'm still trying to get that bad image of that pay-per-view out of my head. Anyways, on today's episode, or tonight, depending on when you may be hearing this, I will be talking about a very unique subject, and one that I don't think many people have touched on. Now, I've heard the wrestler, the legendary wrestler Tony Atlas, talk about some of these things in his recent shoot interview that he did on Boston Wrestling. And so in some of the stuff that he was talking about, how Vince was with wrestlers in the WWF back in the 80s, it was very interesting, and it led me to come up with the topic for today's episode of Beyond Wrestling, and that is wrestling facts you do not know or haven't heard of yet. Because let's face it, with social media these days, they pretty much have killed what wrestling used to have, the mystique that it used to have back in the days, like the 80s, the 90s and stuff, because you didn't have social media. So I think that protected the wrestlers more from all this stuff. And now, I think social media in a way is it's hurting wrestling, but at the same time it's helping, wrestlers get themselves over and gain fans that they wouldn't otherwise been able to do back in the day. But I think mainly how WWE has their wrestlers talking out of character and stuff on the social media. And now there are some people who are still in character, like Becky Lynch recently. I'm sure you guys have seen her. How, man, she's just been grilling everybody. And I think that should be like another episode for Beyond Wrestling. And you know what? I might do that. I think Wednesday I'll possibly do an episode on Becky Lynch alone. So more people can know about how cool she is. But anyways, let's get to today's episode of Beyond Wrestling. And I'm going to talk about the facts you may not know. And the first one is going to be really shocking. Is how much money WWE has made, like from these big Saudi Arabia shows and all that stuff? According to Tony Atlas and many other wrestlers back then, back in the day, a lot of wrestlers only get 10% of everything that that the promotion makes from those live shows, the pay-per-views, and the ticket sales. Wrestlers only get 10% of it, which, when I had heard Tony Atlas say that in that shoot interview that he did on Boston Wrestling, I was shocked. I was like, wow. Now, 10% may be a lot these days compared to how it was back in the day. Because back then, 10%, it may have been maybe $100,000 or whatever, but the cost of living was actually very affordable back then. It's not like that no more. So and you know what? And another thing that they did was they made it so wrestlers could not get outside gigs. Back in the day, wrestlers couldn't do that because they'll probably get fired or something, or they'll probably lose their spot. Promoters definitely did not want wrestlers. They wanted wrestlers, the only thing they know how to do is wrestle. They didn't want them to go and do anything else. That's why they had them working 300 some days a year, which is true. Back in the 70s, the 80s, and even the 90s, I think still, wrestlers was working 300 days a year, which to me, that's a lot. And you know what? They worked on all the holidays. It didn't matter what holiday it was. Wrestlers worked on it, and because they had to get paid. And I know that definitely led to a lot of family problems and stuff. And I actually think wrestlers today have it a little bit better because the money is better. They can go out and do all these outside gigs and stuff. And I think that's pretty cool. You know, they can go and do a movie and make some money off of it. They can go and do radio shows and get paid for it, or comic books, or, you know, whatever it is. They can do a podcast and still be able to go and wrestle. Back in the day, you couldn't do that. And they have more free time to do that. But, I mean, they still work a lot of days, I'm sure. But it's nowhere near as bad as it was back then. And so, and it wasn't just Tony Atlas saying that. It's a lot of wrestlers that have said that. Ric Flair said it in interviews about the long work schedule that wrestlers had back then. Hogan, you know, you name it. And you know, and that was just really crazy. And another cool fact is, like, wrestlers who worked in the NWA, National Wrestling Alliance, which is still going on to this day, and they're putting on some good shows. I mean, the production quality is getting better, I will say that, but NWA is doing really good in terms of their product. And the cool thing about it was, back then, NWA and WCW wrestlers, they could go and work in other territories. Like Ric Flair, if he was the World Heavyweight Champion, he can go and work in the AWA, you know, and fight against guys there. He could go work in WCCW and face the Von Erichs, and he could put his belt on the line. Like, literally put his belt on the line, but he'll get paid a lot of money for going to do those shows because he was a big star. And, you know, back in the WWF or whatever, Bruno Sammartino, you had a better chance of seeing him back then. You could see Andre the Giant up, you know, in person, because he would go and work in Mid-South Wrestling, you know, and you would see him face up against Ric Flair or Ted DiBiase or Tony Atlas, Junkyard Dog. You know, you could see those legends more often. Like, nowadays, you would never see, like, an ROH World Heavyweight Champion going to, or better yet, you wouldn't see any WWE champion going to another promotion defending the belt. You just wouldn't see that. But back in the day, wrestlers could do that. And I thought that was really cool, man. Like, imagine if they would have allowed Sting defend his World Heavyweight Championship in the WWE, I mean the WWF, or just had you know, or vice versa. You know, wrestlers could do that, and, you know, they could still make a lot more money and stuff. And I thought that was so cool, like, when Tony Atlas said that. And it's true. Like, you can literally go on YouTube and look up some of that stuff. And to me, that really add more value to the product of wrestling back then, you know. And I wish we still had that. I wish we had, like, where NXT, the NXT World Champion could come and fight against the WWE Champion on a pay-per-view or on a SmackDown or something like that. Like, you know, that would be really cool. Like, I think that'll make things more interesting. Let's see, what else? I had actually a bunch of these written down. And if you ever notice, like, when you're watching your favorite wrestler, a lot of people like to complain about certain guys only having 4 moves. But when you really look at it, a lot of your favorite wrestlers that you enjoy, they don't even use a lot of moves. They may use 4 or 5 signature moves of theirs, and then the rest of it they just fill in, you know, the blanks or whatever. You know, and I know people love to criticize guys like John Cena and Brock Lesnar, when a lot of our own favorite stars like Stone Cold didn't even have a lot of moves that they use. Even The Rock, one of the most entertaining wrestlers ever, didn't even have a lot of moves, and yet he was still the most entertaining thing on TV, along with Austin. And even Hogan. Yes, Hogan, he sold tickets based on his character and his look alone. And believe it or not, character is what makes money in wrestling, and I don't think a lot of people know that. I don't think if people really realize it. And even though they say, "Oh, this person uses the same moves and stuff," when you really look at it, a lot of our favorite wrestlers use the same moves every time they go in the ring. They just twist it up a little bit. Some nights they may not use all 4 or 5 of their signature moves. They might just use 2. Because they might be in the ring with somebody who's either bigger than them or who may have hurt them in the angle leading up to the big match. So those are things to think about, which I think is cool, and that's why while I don't like Brock Lesnar as the WWE Universal Champion, I can't hate on the guy because he's got a good deal. And all he has to do is go in there and do a few moves, and that's it. And he gets paid hundreds of thousands of dollars or whatever it is that he gets paid. So in a way, I really can't hate on a guy like Brock Lesnar. He has a dream wrestler's schedule, and and he's no different from any of the wrestlers that we have right now. Sure, the cruiserweights may do more moves because that's what they have to do in order to stay noticed. But if you ever notice, like I said, guys like Hogan and Rock Austin, Undertaker, they only had a few moves that they did, and they didn't have to rely on all the hot spots and stuff. Anyways, let's see. I think I pretty much covered all of the big facts. Oh yeah, here's one last big fact that you guys probably would never hear, is that how when you're working and they normally take the taxes out of your check before you go and cash it or whatever, it's already taken out. Well, did you know? Well, is that when a wrestler gets paid, they don't take the taxes out of their check. You have to manually go and pay your taxes. I think even Hollywood stars have to do the same thing. That's why you remember, like when Wesley Snipes got in trouble because he didn't pay his taxes, because they don't take them out of their checks. And it's the same with wrestlers. Wrestlers are independent contractors. And that means, if you look at it, a wrestler is basically their own company. And then the promoter, he'll pay them for their services. Pretty much. I know it sounds kind of weird, but it's the truth. That's why, some wrestlers, they be still wrestling in their 40s, and 40s are not that bad, but you see them in their late 40s, their early 50s, even 60s, still wrestling. And you know why? Maybe it is because they probably they either did bad with their money, or they still have this itch to still try to compete. But a lot of times they don't pay their taxes, so they spend, a lot of their older days still trying to wrestle, So yeah, Vince McMahon, them, they do not take the taxes out of wrestlers' paychecks. So you get that full amount, whatever you get paid. And then it's up to you to go and pay your taxes. I mean, it's no different than any talk show host. That's why you see a lot of these celebrities run these big charities and these big time businesses and stuff. I mean, not businesses, but these big time events. A lot of them do that so they can pay their taxes. So they don't have to worry about the IRS or whoever it is coming after them. So next time you see them doing that, think about it. Yes, they're helping people, but they're also paying their taxes. And the wrestlers have to do the same thing. That's why you may see them throwing some kind of fundraiser or something. It's many ways you can pay your taxes, but pretty much, yes, that is the truth. That is a fact right there. And I want to know what you guys think of this episode of Beyond Wrestling. I figured it'll be something different and cool to talk about. And if you guys know of any wrestling facts that I may not have talked about here, let me know in the comment section below, and we could talk about it more. And who knows, if we could come up with a big list, I'll put them in the next video. I mean, the next, whatever this may be. You know, and if you have any other topics you would like for me to discuss on this show, let me know, and we will gladly put them up on the channel. So until next time, you guys, please be safe. And if I don't put up anything on Wednesday, which I still want to do that, but if nonetheless, have a blessed, happy Thanksgiving. I'm going to tell you that now. And I appreciate you guys for hanging in there and supporting the channel with your likes and views, because that helps the channel get noticed by other people. So feel free to share this, and have a blessed one.